the working folks fight back.
Yeah.
Which was an interesting way of putting it. I do think that it is important that we understand that we have cut a lot of taxes over the last 3 years because we're in a difficult economy. The vast majority of the taxes we've cut, billions and billions of dollars in taxes, have been for small businesses and for working folks. We cut the payroll tax. We did a lot of tax cutting for small businesses. Now, so it's not like we don't want to cut taxes for folks. We do want to cut taxes for folks. But what we're saying now is, for those folks that make more than $1 million, if they would go back to the tax rate they paid in the 90s, when those quote-unquote job creators created 22 million jobs, okay, at that tax rate didn't stop them from creating all those jobs. If they just went back to that tax rate, that, I think, most Americans think is a fair thing to do. And we are trying very hard to do that because we have to have a little bit of revenue to make this work out in terms of getting our debt and deficit. I don't want to just spin this like so many people are doing right now. One side's spinning it one way and one side's spinning it the other way. I want to tell you straight, we've got to do something. And part of that equation needs to be some taxes on very wealthy people to help. Or, in the alternative, we could clean the tax code out. Take some of the goodies away. If we took some of the goodies away, we could lower everyone's tax rate, including the corporate rate. Some of you may not agree with this, but I believe the corporate rate needs to be lowered. Why do I say that? Because for our manufacturing to compete, you know, everybody says, well, don't let them take our jobs overseas. Stop them from taking our jobs overseas. Well, I'd love to figure out how to do that. Now, we can make sure we're not incentivizing them to go overseas and pull back any tax goodies they get for going overseas. But at the end of the day, if a company wants to move its operation to India, what are we going to do, put a gun to their head? This is America, after all. So what do we have to do? We used to have the lowest corporate tax rate in the world. We now have one of the very highest corporate tax rates in the world. So we want to make sure that we create an environment where businesses want to be here. We've got the work ethic. We've got the education. We have a lot of the innovation if we don't give up on education and innovation in this new effort to dismantle the federal government. You know, but we've got to do all of this stuff. So either we clean out the goodies and use some of that revenue for the debt and the rest of it to lower taxes, or we let those tax cuts expire for the very wealthy. I think either one of those alternatives need to be on the table, and those are the things that we need to go forward and do. I tried to pass a spending cap way before last year's election with a Republican colleague of mine from Alabama. We came close to passing it. We got 17 Democratic votes and all of the Republican votes. So it's not that I'm not for making the federal government be smarter and stronger about the way they spend your money. But the Ryan budget plan is like trying to turn out the lights and go home. And it would have a dramatic impact on our economy. Keep in mind that we need money moving through our economy right now. And, you know, in fact, several of the months that we've had meager job creation, that has been because there's been significant public job loss. People being laid off from government work. Now, in the long run, we probably need a few less government workers. In the short run, it makes this economic recovery even more of a challenge. So that's why we have to be careful about short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. What we don't want is to turn out the lights and send this thing back over the edge of the cliff again. That would be bad for everybody. The only way you spend federal money is through appropriations. And all they keep saying, oh, well, you don't have a budget, you don't have a budget. Well, they didn't have a budget when I got there, and it was a Republican Senate. That's an advisory document. What matters is what the appropriators pass. What we pass in appropriations. So all raising the debt ceiling was taking care of appropriations that had already been made, most of which these guys had voted for. So they voted to spend it, and then they didn't want to pay the bill. I don't know if I'll get reelected or not, to tell you the truth. I don't know, and that's not the point. Okay? If I come home, it's not the end of the world. I have great faith that maybe not this next year, and maybe not the following year, but that we will retain our balance as a nation, where we respect one another even if we have differences of opinion, and that we don't use such meanness. I think that whoever has given Karl Rove all this money is probably somebody whose toes I've stepped on in Washington, and I think the saddest thing about
the negative and distorted ads that are going to be part of this campaign is the people of Missouri are never going to know who's paying for them and why it is that they're paying for them. I've gone after a lot of contractors, big, powerful people in Washington, and now they can hide behind Karl Rove's skirts and pay for this kind of advertising, and the folks around here will never really know why it is that they're trying to distort what the real facts are.
Are you going to try to avoid being seen within the campaign?
I think that's silly. You know, I think the media, I mean, it's interesting that these are the first two questions I get. I think that there is a real tendency to try to make this about the political intrigue, and he's the President of the United States. Of course I'll be seen with him. I'm not going to run away from the President. Now, he'll be the first to tell you that I drive him crazy because I won't always vote with him. I voted against him on a lot of issues. I don't always agree with him. I exercise independent judgment. At the end of the day, Missourians want to know that I'm independent. They don't want to see me play some game acting like I don't want to be seen with the President. I think that whoever thinks that I'm going to avoid being seen with the President doesn't know me very well. I would really hope that we would see a bipartisan vote on the President's jobs bill. The problem is that there are too many people that are saying they can't give the President a victory because that would help him. In other words, too many people are worried about the election and not worried about the American people. We need to get that jobs bill passed right now, not 14 months from now, not after the next election. But there are folks that have actually said out loud, well, why would we give the President a success? We've got him on the ropes. Let's keep him on the ropes. Washington is too worried about elections and not worried enough about the policy and how it impacts real people in this country.